Hey, this is Eli Campbell. You know, Steamboat is renowned worldwide for skiing, biking, and all that our natural playground has to offer. We're fortunate, though, that the natural beauty here attracts more than just outdoor enthusiasts. From local legends to world-class acts, amazing musicians regularly play the venues in our little corner of Northwest Colorado. Join me as I explore the stories and experiences of these talented artists who bring unforgettable performances to Steamboat. This is your Steamboat Sound Check. Welcome to the Steamboat Sound Check podcast, presented by McCreight Progressive Dentistry, who ask what makes you smile. And for many of us here in the Yamp Valley, that answer is live music, which is one of the reasons we've been excited to partner with Schmiggity's all winter to help highlight the musicians hitting their stage. And as part of that, I'm excited to be joined today by Nate Werth, percussionist for both Snarky Puppy and Ghost Note, latter of which will be playing Schmiggity's on Sunday night. How are you doing?
Man, I'm doing so good. We've been in Colorado now for almost a week, and the drives in between these cities are so wild.
Hopefully you're going to get some good weather on Sunday when you're driving up from the Front Range here to Steamboat, but I'm sure you've had some decent little weather experiences this past week.
Yeah, I mean, the drive from Crested Butte to Durango was wild. That was so wild. And many people were giving their prayers, hoping that we wouldn't fall off the side of the mountain. I mean, the shows have been so great, and Durango was so great. Crested Butte was so great. Last night in Fort Collins was great. The high energy of the Colorado audience, we love it, and it's perfect for our music. And so Steamboat Springs is going to be on fire. It's going to be our last show in Colorado, so we're definitely going to be bringing the funk and the fire.
Nice. And we love talking to the bands that are coming through Colorado that just show so much appreciation for our Colorado music fans here, because it's a different level. We're lucky to have the venues that musicians dream of playing, like the Red Rocks and different amphitheaters, as well as the small little mountain towns always showing up for you. And I want to talk about the show coming up here in Steamboat in just a minute. But first, I just kind of want to start about you yourself, kind of talking about earlier in your career and how you have found the sound that you found. You've always kind of leaned a little bit more towards some of these non-traditional percussion elements, whether it's taking influences from around the globe or different things that you just kind of find around you. Curiosity seems to be a big part of what your music is personally. How did you find that to resonate with you so much, and how's that shaped the different bands that you've been a part of?
Man, wow, that's a great question. For me, rhythm has just always been a part of my life, and I've been very lucky from a young age to be exposed to so many different cultures of music. And I had very supportive parents and an older brother that's a badass percussionist as well. And so there's been all these opportunities throughout my path. And, as a youngin, like when I was like 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, I got to go to these music camps during the summer, and it was an amazing experience in Egg Harbor, Wisconsin, I believe it's in. And the staff and the faculty from Northern Illinois University would put on this 3-week percussion camp, and they'd bring in 3 percussionists every week from around the world. So like one week Brazil and Cuba and Puerto Rico, and the next week like West Africa, like Ghana or somewhere like that, and Morocco, and I mean, it was wild. So I got exposed to all these different cultures of music. And then on top of that, I've just been a music lover, and me and my brother used to have a sequencer, like a Roland XP80 keyboard with like a hard drive on it, like a floppy disk drive. And we would sequence songs from the radio and like things like that. And so trying to discover like how to dial in the right sound, I think started making me more curious. And being in like anything from playing basketball in like old gyms where they have like those fan blades running ahead over you, and all these polyrhythms would just be happening. So like this, like hearing weird rhythms in nature and metallic sounds. And I mean, I used to go to the junkyard, like car junkyard, with my friends, and we would just go in there and beat on old cards and make rhythms and like things like that. Or I'd leave with a brake drum of a tire or like a piece of a car. And that started making me dig more into scrap metal and trying to add those kind of things. And so all this stuff, I mean, I really don't know how to pinpoint the influence and rhythm, but I love different cultures of music and rhythm. And I've been so fortunate to have teachers that were so open and kind of supported my maybe unique use of learning a folkloric rhythm and then like sort of breaking it down or only playing half of it or repeating a phrase of it and making it my own so that I can make it funky or changing the feel of it or slowing it down. And so things like this are just natural to me, I think, from listening to amazing percussionists that were doing exactly this. It's not really a new thing I'm doing. I'm just taking from these amazing percussionists that played music and were so influenced by folkloric, but then would do it in their own way. And percussionists that played with like Weather Report, like Ayrton Moreira and Alex Acuna, or percussionists that like I get to see firsthand tomorrow night, Bill Summers with Herbie Hancock and the Headhunters. And so that's going to be a full circle moment because I grew up listening to his sound and his approach. And I mean, the list goes on. Like, there's so many percussionists that Paulinho da Costa, the famous Brazilian percussionist, he's like one of the most recorded. And they always were fusing styles, like taking a rhythm from Brazil and merging it with a rhythm from Africa. And, you know, really, when you think about it, all rhythms come from Africa. And so at some point, there is like a foundational element that already exists there. And so just trying to lock in with the pocket of the band and people that write music that haven't studied folklore music, maybe they have no idea that they're playing like a boogaraboo rhythm, you know, like, and that's the clave. And so, but because I've been so influenced and inspired by listening to these amazing master percussionists from around the world, I think it's just kind of been lodged in my brain a bit. And then I'm also just a weird guy. Like, I like funny, weird things and I have weird humor. And so that's going to meld and blend into my music.
Oh, and obviously that helped you get embraced by these really kind of eclectic bands like Snarky Puppy, just all the different elements that go into the music there. Snarky Puppy, you guys were celebrating just last year, 10-year anniversary of kind of an iconic album. We Like It Here, and released a reimagined, remastered version of that with 8 alternative takes. I was curious, were those tracks 8 alternative takes that were recorded 10 years ago, or is it 10 years of wisdom and growth and looking back and like, oh, what if we had done this here and that there that kind of led to that?
Oh, that would be wild. No, they were just alternative takes of 10 years ago. Because what we did, the way we were doing those sessions, especially back then, and kind of how we just did the record that's about to come out, Somni, is we go in the studio and we rehearse for a few days, maybe 2 days, 3 days tops, and then we bring in audiences and start recording, and we'll do 2 sets each day. And that session, I think we did 3 days in a row. So then there's 6 versions, or maybe 5, because maybe every set we don't play every song, but we didn't play every song. And so there's about 5 choices. And so they just chose another version and mixed and mastered it. And that was the celebration, which is such a cool way for like the fans that were there, or and even ones that wish they were there, and like kind of the super fans to experience the music in just such a new feel or a new solo section. But
Yeah, and
yeah.
of course, that release was again a celebration of 10 years, and now you're kind of celebrating 10 years of Ghost Note. It is about 10 years ago that you guys came together as a band with Sput, and just when you were launching Ghost Note, was the idea to have this long-term project, or was it just really like a, hey, let's go and try this and see where it takes us side project type of deal?
Yeah. I can't believe it's been 10 years of Ghost Note. Um, Time flies. And when Sput and I started this thing, we were just, I mean, it was between like our connection with rhythm and the way we played together and the unique sort of fusion of styles and cultures and backgrounds that we grew up in. And also the similarities there and the crossover. I think we were just inspired to document it in like a really great way. And that's what Fortified was. And so we had all the 5K cameras, like the best cameras 10 years ago, and in one of our favorite studios with our favorite sound engineer and some of our friends rolling through to just maybe feature one instrument with drums and percussion. And the idea was to try and capture our unique way to play together and also do a record that wasn't about solos. You know, like where most drums records or percussion records, it's like virtuosity, which is amazing. But our virtuosity was capturing this deep groove and playing off each other and just making something really unique and special. And so we just demoed out a bunch of ideas and went in there and did that. And afterwards, people would hear it and be like, you got to tour this. You got to do this live. And so it forced us to just try and start to make a band. And you can see the evolution of the group, which has been so beautiful, how we collect members along the way, and that sort of molds the music in the new direction it goes. And so Ghost Note, for a new listener, is a completely different band from when if you are a day one listener. And I think that's something beautiful for a musician to have, and for fans to support that, is that evolution of gaining new musicians and new music and new experiences, you know, because that's what life is, right? We're not these time capsules. We have to grow the music. And so the version that you're going to see in Steamboat Springs is like one of my favorite versions yet of this band. It's amazing. It's so powerful and explosive, and we connect with the audience so much more because the group is so seasoned. We have members on tour with us that have been in the band for 7, 8 years, you know, and then we have new fresh members that have been in the band for 2 or 3 years. So this keeping it fresh vibe and always like kind of growing it, I think, is essential for a band today.
Yeah, it's interesting. There's something to be said for people going and knowing what to expect and consistency, but you guys have taken the approach of something new, something fresh. And I'm sure that's brought challenges as you've brought new people into the band, but also gives you this creative opportunity to do things just a little bit differently with different influences. And I saw where when you were recording the 2018 album Swagism, I think it was Sput said something about how at that time, the band was still kind of in that, like, still trying to figure out what the music was, what the sound was. Your album that came out just about a year ago, Mustard and Onions, was really more of a defined sound. Is that something that you were trying to find when you went into the recording studio this last time, a real like defined sound, or is that just how it evolved organically now that you're 10 years into this?
Yeah, I think what happened is, you know, we were touring Swagism a lot, and we had gone in the studio right before the pandemic and recorded like 36 different songs over the course of like a month. And it's a studio we work out of in Los Angeles, and we basically live there when we're in Los Angeles and record ideas and build songs together. We would improvise moments like a little bit of the time, but most of the songs were like written by one of the members and arranged by Robert Sput Searight. And so we did all of that, and we're so excited to like start to release some of that music and take it on tour. And then boom, you know, puff goes the magic dragon, and we were just in this whole altered state of living. And we had to climb out of that. And so when we got back together, we were like, all right, let's pull up the Swagism set. And it just didn't work out. Or, you know, and it felt like, are we a time capsule now? Like, what are we trying to do here? And so immediately we realized, like, we just got to evolve. And at the time, the band was really inspired when we played with each other these improvised moments before these Swagism songs that would just turn to straight funk. And so a lot of the songs we recorded that we hadn't released yet were really funky. And it was like in that line. And so Sput arranged the show, and we immediately changed the show, and it involved some covers and kind of doing it our own way. But everything was leaning really hard to funk. And also a lot of the members started singing. And so vocals became a part of the band. And so when we recorded those songs back in the day and it was time to release them, you know, this last year, we had already kind of toured a lot of those songs. Maybe half the record had already been toured for 3 years coming out of the pandemic. So it's a kind of a weird way to release music. But the intention in the recording session was much more than Swagism. Swagism was that last minute, how are we going to morph the band, and what are we going to do? And that's a whole story in itself. And Mustard and Onions was definitely more of a thought out process. And when you listen to the album, you can really feel that continuity in our experiences from funk, and pulling from our last influences as a band of like the experimental and like the intro to synesthesia, how it's just like really interesting. And in a live version of synesthesia, it's just so much different because when we added our new vocalist, Mackenzie, we, yeah, on the record, it was really just on one song because all of the songs had features already and everything was sort of packaged. But we wanted to get him on the record since he was the newest addition to the band. And so what we did then is we went into the studio before the first tour after the album was released and arranged maybe 5 of the songs and Mackenzie wrote lyrics to them. So now we have completely new versions of some of these songs that were recorded on Mustard and Onions, which, hint, hint, maybe there's a live album coming. And it's just amazing. So the people that are coming to these live shows, if they're listening to the record, they're going to get a really cool experience hearing these songs in such a different light.
Well, and something that you have certainly done, and this music has done, is really created a uplifting feeling. We're living in a day and age right now where it's kind of some people feel dark times. It's heavy out there, and you're as a creator, as a performer, you talk about the uplifting power of music. How do you harness that for yourself, and how do you help the audiences around you, even if it's just temporary, feel a release from the everyday stresses when they're at your shows?
I think it's some days it's hard to just open up that door of inspiration and love and just keep on giving. And some days it's really easy, and it's more about just taking care of yourself on the road and keeping connections back home strong, and being healthy, and because us as performers, artists, we're every night, and then we're riding around in a van, or a bus sometimes. And so surrounding yourselves with people that also have similar values and positive energy, and always trying to keep the vibes high, I think is really important. And Ghost Note is that. We're a big family out here on the road, and we love each other and take care of each other and support each other. And that really comes out on stage. And I think that's one of the things that the fan base loves about us, is it really does feel like a family band that is just so inspired and soaking in funk. So we roll through and we're just this incredible vibe all the time. And so that's very easy for the crowd to latch onto and love.
Well, as you're talking about, feeling uplifting and trying to stay positive in a van, you're on your way to Boulder right now, and you'll be coming up here to Steamboat in a couple of nights. Really appreciate you taking the time as you're making that drive up north from Denver, and can't wait to see you up here in Steamboat. Safe travels as you're coming up here. I do want to remind all of our listeners real quick as well that through our Steamboat Locals app, you can get a free well drink when Ghost Note plays on Sunday evening. And again, thank you very much for taking some time.
All right. Thank you so much. See y'all soon.